Hello everyone. Today I'm making this video because last night I watched this video. I'm not going to say the channel name or the woman who made this video, but she used the Bible as an example of different things. Like, she doesn't understand why people don't have the common sense or the logic to understand that it's not true. And she gave two examples, and the first one was about Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and the second one was about Noah's Ark. The first one with Cain and Abel, she basically said there was only 4 people in the beginning of time: Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. So Cain killed Abel, so therefore where did his wife come from when he went to Nod or whatever? I have to admit, I've asked this question myself in the beginning of my relationship with Jesus, and I know how to answer this question, and I want others to know the answer to this question too. And her second theory was that how did the animals in the ark not eat each other? And I did some research, and I found things to explain this whole situation, and people just need to know. And I'll put the links in the description box below of every resource I've used to get this information, and so you can read it for yourself. It's all from the Bible. So the first one about Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, when she said that they were the only 4 people in the world at the time. Cain was the first child of Adam and Eve recorded in scriptures, Genesis 4:1. His brothers Abel, Genesis 4:2, and Seth, Genesis 4:25, were part of the first generation of children ever born on the earth. Even though only these 3 males are mentioned by name, Adam and Eve had other children. In Genesis 5:4, a statement sums up the life of Adam and Eve. And the days of Adam after he had fathered Seth were 800 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. This does not say when they were born. Many could have been born in the 130 years, Genesis 5:3, before Seth was born. During their lives, Adam and Eve had a number of male and female children. The Jewish historian Josephus wrote that the number of Adam's children, as says the old tradition, was 33 sons and 23 daughters. The Bible does not tell us how many children were born to Adam and Eve. However, considering their long lifespans, Adam lived for 930 years, Genesis 5:5. It would seem reasonable to suggest there were many. Remember, they were commanded to be fruitful and multiply, Genesis 1:28. If we now work totally from Scripture, without any personal prejudices or other extra biblical ideas, then back at the beginning, when there was the only first generation, brothers would have had to marry their sisters, or there would be no more generations. We are not told when Cain married or any of the details of other marriages and children, but we can say for certain that some brothers had to marry their sisters at the beginning of human history. Many people immediately reject the conclusion that Adam and Eve's sons and daughters married each other by appealing to the law against brother-sister intermarriage. Some say that you cannot marry your relation. Actually, if you don't marry your relation, you don't marry a human. A wife is related to her husband even before they marry, because all people are descendants of Adam and Eve. All are of one blood. The law forbidding marriage between close relatives was not given until the time of Moses. Leviticus 18:20 provided marriage was one man to one woman for life, based on Genesis 1 and 2. There was no disobedience to God's law originally when close relatives, even brothers and sisters, married each other. Remember that Abraham married his half-sister, Genesis 20:12. God blessed this union to produce the Hebrew people through Isaac and Jacob. It was not until some 400 years later that God gave Moses laws that forbade such marriages. Some claim that the passage of Genesis 4:16-17 means that Cain went to the land of Nod and found a wife. Thus, they can conclude there must have been another race of people on the earth. who are not descendants of Adam, who produced Cain's wife. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived, and bore Enoch. And he built a city, and he called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. From what has been stated previously, it is clear that all humans, Cain's wife included, are descendants of Adam. However, this passage does not say that Cain went to the land of Nod and found a wife. John Calvin, commenting on these verses, states, "From the context we may gather that Cain, before he slew his brother, had married a wife. Otherwise, Moses would now have related something respecting his marriage." Cain was married before he went to the land of Nod. He didn't find a wife there, but knew he had sexual relations with his wife. Others have argued that because Cain built a city in the land of Nod, there must have been a lot of people there. However, the Hebrew word translated as city need not mean what we might imagine from the connotations of city today. The word meant a walled town or a protected encampment. Even 100 people would be plenty for such a city. Nevertheless, there could have been many descendants of Adam on the earth by the time of Abel's death. Many Christians cannot answer the question about Cain's wife because they focus on today's world and the problems associated with close relations marrying, and do not understand the clear historical record God has given to us. They try to interpret Genesis from our present situation rather than understand the true biblical history of the world and the changes that have occurred because of sin. Because they are not building their worldview of Scripture on Scripture, but taking a secular way of thinking to the Bible, they are blinded to the simple answers. Genesis is the record of the God who was there as history happened. It is the word of one who knows everything and who is reliable witness from the past. Thus, when we use Genesis as a basis for understanding history, we can make sense of questions that would otherwise be a mystery. So that pretty much sums that part up, explaining that technically there were more than 4 people, because he had another brother, Seth, and he had other brothers and sisters that weren't even named. They were just briefly mentioned that they were there. Moving on to the Noah's Ark situation, where she said about how did the birds not eat the ants, and how did the lions not eat the lambs, and all that. Well, this explains why. Today, there are many animals that kill other animals for food. Exactly when this habit first began is a mystery, but it could not have started until sometime after man's first sin. In the original creation, all animals ate plants, not meat. Genesis 1:30. There was no killing before the fall, when Adam and Eve rebelled against God in the Garden of Eden. It was not until sometime after sin's beginning that animals began to eat other animals. Did this habit begin right after man's first sin? Probably not. It is certainly not likely that animals instantly change into the way they are today. These habits probably developed naturally in man's sinful world over hundreds and thousands of years, and they may not have become common until sometime after the flood. Before the flood, there is no indication in the Bible that any of the animals ate meat or were violent and vicious. It is people that God says were so terrible and violent. By the time of the flood, most animals must still have been able to live on plant food alone. Every basic kind of land animal and bird in the world was on the ark. They ate only plants during the voyage, for God told Noah to load the ship with every kind of food the animals would need, Genesis 6:21. Green plant. These foods must have been the same things God assigned to the animals in the beginning, every green plant. There is no hint that God changed this command between the time of creation and the flood. Before the flood, there may have been no need for animals to kill each other for food. So I hope that answers those questions. I understand it can be hard to understand it. I get that, and because in my beginning of Christianity, I questioned the same thing, like where did Cain's wife come from? It confused me. But there are answers if you look, and God reveals them to you and explains every thing in the Bible that might not make sense to you now, it will later. And I just really hope and pray that this video has helped somebody out there who might not believe because of this. Like this woman, she said she didn't believe in the Bible because she didn't believe the stories were true because they weren't logical. They really are logical, but you have to really read and study the Bible and understand where it's all coming from. And like I said, I will put all the links down in the description box. You can read this for yourself. It's all from the Bible. Verses are listed. So just thank you and have a blessed day.